Hi guys, welcome to video number 4 in my new series where I'm creating a login registration system using Facebook Connect in CodeIgniter. What we're doing right now is we're slowly integrating this the Facebook SDK into our CodeIgniter application in the form of a new library. Where we're at right now is we actually need to start thinking about how we're going to instantiate our Facebook object. And the way that works is it receives an array with two keys in it, one being the app ID and one being the secret key. So the way we're going to do that is we're actually going to create a config file, and this will be the first time we've ever done this if you've been following my tutorials. What I want to do is I want to grab this app ID and app secret. And now okay, so this app ID and app secret, and then I'm going to store it in a config file in my config folder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new file in my config folder and call it facebook.php. Okay, now I'll go ahead and open it up. I'll just open up my PHP tags, and I'm going to say config is equal to array. And then I'm going to put two different values in here. The first one will be app, capitalized I, app ID with a capital I, and that will be equal to whatever my app ID is on my website, or on my Facebook app. So that's this. Copy that, and then I'll paste it there. Comma, new line, and then it receives another value called secret. And then the key, or my secret key, is actually going to go in there. So save that, paste it, good to go. And that is all we actually need in our Facebook config file. This is just good practice to keep configuration options, configuration values in a new file in our config file. Then what we can do in our actual new library that we're creating is we can reference those values just by using the load, I believe. Yeah. So, or this config load. So what we'll do is we'll create a new actual function, a constructor method actually. And this is I'm pretty sure this is new. If we create a function in this library, public function, and name it the exact same thing as the class name, it will become the constructor method. And of course that means that whenever this library is instantiated, it will be the first method that runs every single time. Whereas these other methods can be just, they can be used, I don't know, throughout after the instantiation of the actual class. So the first thing that I want to do is create a super object so that I can reference those the config values. So I'll create a get underscore instance. Use that function. So now I have my super object, which is CI, and I'll go CI config load. And now I'm going to say Facebook because that's the name of my config file in my config folder. And then I'm going to pass a second parameter, which is true, which essentially means that the values that it's going to be receiving are going to be in an array form. If there was only one value, then we wouldn't have to say true because it would just we'd just be able to access it without an array or whatever, just by like a regular variable type. But when we have true as the second parameter, then it'll receive it as a variable. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is create that array and set it equal to CI config item. And then we're just going to grab from Facebook. So we're going to grab this config variable is actually going to be an array containing these two values, essentially this config array. Perfect. And then now that I have this config array, essentially what I need to do is now we can use those. So I'll show you really quick. We'll just echo config app ID, just to make sure that we're actually loading this the app ID. So we'll go back to my application, run it, and there we go. My app ID is actually being grabbed from the Facebook folder, or from the Facebook file in the config folder, because I was able to load that config and then grab it or whatever. Okay, the next thing that we need to start thinking about now is eventually the original intent was to build this library, FB Connect, that extends the already existing SDK. And this is really important because that means that in this function, in the FB Connect library that we're creating, we can use all of the functions and methods that have previously been created by the nice people at Facebook. So in this case, like all of these functions, we can also use all of the functions in the base_Facebook file, because I'm sure you noticed the first thing that this does is it requires the base Facebook file as well. And this is extremely important because now we're going to start using some of these functions that Facebook has made, which gives us access to do things like connect to their database. So what I'll do is I'll go Facebook Connect extends Facebook. And this is only doable because we're actually including the this first Facebook library, or this first Facebook file, which is a class. And so we're extending it with our FB Connect library. But you'll see in the Facebook file that we got in the SDK, our constructor method requires a config file. So what we can do is, using a scope resolution operator, we can pass that config file into the parent constructor method. This might seem really complicated at first, but for example, right now, if I was to leave this and refreshed it, there's no way that we could actually instantiate the Facebook Connect method. Here, I'll show you. In my main controller, I'll actually call. Oh no, I'm loading it, so that's fine. In order to actually instantiate the object, though, and have it be connecting or doing any kind of connecting to the database, we need to pass in those config items and get them here. So the way that we do that is, like I said, we use a scope resolution operator, or scope resolution operator, yeah. And then we call the construct method of the parent, construct, and then we just pass it that new config array that we just grabbed from this, or from our config options. Now we successfully have configured our Facebook object. The next thing we're going to be talking about will be maybe grabbing some of that information from from our Facebook SDK and actually using it.